Kori, how are things?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. It's hot here. London's hot in the summer, but not that cold in the winter, which means I can come down from up north and always be in shorts, which is nice.
Yeah, the north. So I went to Inverness for work years ago, but I went to Edinburgh like 2 years ago, and it was like snowing, and it was not snowing in England, and I was a bit like, oh, mad.
Yeah, that happens. And if there's 1 inch of snow in London, the whole of the UK shuts down. So I think it's desperate times. But we're going to go in at the deep end and ask the bold and big old question that is reality TV. Is it worth it? Yes or no?
Yeah, 100%. Because for me, I wouldn't be doing any of the stuff that I'm doing now if I hadn't done reality TV, and I'd still probably be on a building site back home, like hating my life, feeling like by this time I probably would have managed to navigate another way out of that situation, because I have that confidence in myself and I always have. But it's definitely fast forwarded a lot of stuff for me, and it wasn't just the be all and end all. Do you know what I mean? Like, I got to that point where I did it and I thought I wanted to do it and I thought I'd enjoy the outcome. But then there's a lot of things I learned along the way about where I actually want to go and what I've learned. And yeah, it wasn't the like be all and end all, and it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. But yeah, it was definitely worth doing, because now I'm in this position.
What were the harsh lessons that came out the back end of it? Because I can imagine that you signed up with the plans of this is what my life's going to look like afterwards. And most people that come out of whatever show situation it is, it's not always as you'd expect, is it? There's downsides, there's things that might not go the way you'd hope. What were the fastest lessons?
Well, one of the big things for me was before, which I never used to talk about around the time that I was on the shows, because I did Too Hot to Handle first and then I went on to X on the Beach about a year later. I never talked about like drinking and drugs, and now I've been 2 years sober, coming up in September, 2 years clean from everything. And I'd managed to kind of like, before I went on to the show, technically when I filmed it, I still had a bit of a problem. And when I lived back in Plymouth, I was very much like every single weekend getting on it and doing stupid things and feeling guilty and not feeling like I'm achieving anything. And then I sorted myself out, and then we went into lockdown. So I was sober, went into lockdown sober, went on to the TV, obviously the TV show come out. And then as soon as I moved back to London and things started to happen again, I started falling into bad habits. And I think it was like elevated from the fact that I had this new like attention and money, and I was in this new situation, this new environment, and I wanted to kind of like, I was trying to make the most of it in whatever way. And I fell into like old habits and then started becoming almost like worse than I was before. And then there's also the pressure of like that either coming out or me like losing what I'd gained from it. Do you know what I mean? So that was one of the biggest things is like dealing with it all. And then I think for a lot of people, after a certain amount of time, you can get very complacent with like this like quite fast money, attention, like free clubs. I could go out doing whatever I wanted. I was traveling, doing all this cool stuff. I could very easily have got like stuck in that and stayed there, but it wouldn't have lasted for very long. And it didn't really. But I was very lucky to like kind of find my own direction outside of that and find like sport and endurance sport and fitness in the kind of stuff that I'm doing on social media and trying to like help other people, inspire other people to do better with themselves. That was like my way out. And I think I could have easily just stayed doing what I was doing and probably be a bit fucked now. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
What was the turning point where you actually found sort of self-driven health and fitness? When did that go from being something that, I know you grew up playing combat sports, sort of partaking in combat sports, and there were other things going on, but it was never as much a part of your life as it is now?
Yeah, like to be fair, I was the first time I ever did anything like really, so I've always been into like sport and fitness, and I did loads of different stuff growing up, like football, then basketball, and then actually ran a little bit when I was like 16, 17, did a half marathon and did all this stuff, went to uni, started partying all the time, kind of took a back seat, but I always went to the gym. Like no matter what, I'd always be in the gym 5-6 days a week from the age of like 16. And I got into bodybuilding. So the first real kind of discipline in like following a process and enduring a process in a sense was me bodybuilding at like 19, 20. Did Mr. Plymouth, won first timers in juniors and stuff in that. So that was the first initial time. And that was like a 2-year break from alcohol and partying and stuff, just focusing on that. Did all right, took it as far as I kind of could. Didn't really want to take it any further. Like, didn't really enjoy it by the end of it after the second show. And then fell back into the old party ways and kind of wasting my life away. But then it wasn't until like lockdown again where I sort of found running. And at the time, to be fair, I was actually running a lot for boxing fitness, but I found running, and that was kind of like when it started to trickle in. And I'd always read all the books and done all of that stuff, and I was always trying to improve myself. I always thought I wanted better, and I always was competing with myself in a way, like from like school, like that was always a thing. But yeah, it was only the last couple of years where I've started to take it like really seriously, and do some of the stuff that I'm doing. And
so that spark, that I assume comes from a, fair to say, obsessive personality with certain things.
Yeah.
When did you make the decision to go sober and sort of cut everything? And what did that lead to in terms of your ambition, goal setting when it came to big, intimidating fitness challenges?
Yeah. Initially, it was just like 3 to 4 month periods, like training blocks. Like that's how I kind of did it. So I was like, right, I didn't want to go out every weekend. So I ended up doing, I was meant to have a fight. So like I want to say like a bit of a social media fight, a bit of a like celebrity one. So I had like a 4-month training block for that. That actually didn't end up happening, that first one, but I did that sober. And that was the first kind of like entry into that. So then I was just like, I noticed the benefits of it, and obviously I knew there was benefits to doing it, and that was kind of just the start of it. But it took me like probably 2 years on and off of like having a bit of a sober period, then going on holiday and fucking it all up, and then having another period. And it was so 2 years when I did the last, like, so I went IB for last year sober, but 2 years since I went to the last like IB for party trip, 2 weeks before I did London Marathon. So this is when I first started to get into the running stuff. So it's only like 2.5 years ago. And I did the training block, said I was going to go IB for him, try not be like as crazy as I used to be, because every time I used to go was like no sleep for 7 days, like proper intense. And I actually met my missus there, but ended up extending, long story short, extending a trip, did like 5 days of getting on it and drinking and whatever. And then I went and did London Marathon in like 3 hours 18 or something. And I was like, okay, like this it went all right. Like, and I could have done better if I hadn't done what I did. And I was like, do you know what? I'm just done. I'm done with like feeling guilty and doing all this stuff and feeling like I'm wasting time. And I always think like, what if I didn't miss a training session, or what if I could have done better? What, like, no matter what I do. And that's why I think I take all these things really, really seriously. And it's almost like giving me a bit of respect in that sense, because every time I do something, I do it like I say I'm going to do something, and I do it to the best of my ability, and I never miss anything. It's like 100%. I don't go out, I don't drink. So I know there's no what if I could have done better. And obviously things don't always go to plan, but in my head, I'd feel like I'm missing out on something if I didn't do that.
You've been properly all in on partying, getting on it. You've been properly all in on training for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of people in a lot of different situations that might find themselves slipping into habits that they're not all that excited about. They might find themselves slipping into anxiety, regret, wondering what they're doing on Sunday mornings and then going into another week. What are the things that you found have helped you most in terms of unpacking how you can take steps forward to be in the position that you are now? Because I can imagine there's been lots of mental dialogue, lots of things you've had to wrestle with over the years, but it's a situation a lot of people find themselves in. If they're slipping into bad habits, what are the things that you would recommend?
Do ultramarathons, because it gives you a lot of time to think about stuff. I think environment is so important, and there's everyone now is like always asked the question. So like I've done a sober speaking event recently, and I've been to other ones and stuff, and I've heard people talk about it, and a lot of people ask like, how do you maintain a social life when you want to avoid drinking, or like your friends don't want to participate in that and they don't really get it, and most of your life socially is around alcohol, which it is for most people. And I think like the honest answer for me is there isn't really like a compromise. It's like you have to cut it all out and you have to remove yourself in that situation, and you might see your friends less. It doesn't have to be forever. But that really helped me. And like at the time when I was trying to like navigate this, I was living with my friends that were still partying and having after parties at the flat, and like I'd get up in the morning to go running like early on a Sunday, and they'd still be going and stuff. And like I had to just go, right, do you know what? Maybe I should get my own place. Maybe I should move out. Maybe I should do that. And I think like you just got to think about like your priorities and what you actually want to do. And like there isn't a problem with drinking every weekend if you want to do that. Like, yeah, there's negatives to it, but if you know the trade-off and you're willing to give it up, like the things that you could do in the potential to do more, or then that's fine. But when you feel guilty about it and it starts affecting other aspects of your life, then it becomes an issue. And I think that's just what it was with me. I was just like very motivated and driven to do sort of more and like great things. And I don't think it has a place in most people's lives to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the main things would be like changing your environment and removing yourself from certain situations. And then once you've broken it as a habit, then it almost like becomes quite easy, and you can still then go back into it without it fucking you up. So like I could easily now, if I wanted to, go and have a drink, and it wouldn't mean like, oh, I want another drink, I want to stay out all night, and like I wouldn't do that. And I had situations where that's been the case, where I've been fine. But at the start, there's a lot of like, I think you need to break the habit. And then once it isn't a habit anymore, then you can kind of experiment with introducing it back in, which obviously is different for different people. Like I wasn't an addict. I was addicted in a sense. We're all addicted to something, but I wasn't like an addict where I couldn't break that cycle and get out of it myself, because I didn't have any help. I just did it just me.
A lot of people that might be finding themselves slipping into bad habits might not be completely content with what they're doing on a week by week, day by day basis. You've been in that situation with construction. You've spoken very openly about how negative it was for you mentally and how lost you were with it. Just talk us through that period and sort of the dialogue that you were experiencing that I guess ultimately led you to taking the opportunity when it came from a reality TV point of view, because it's a big risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's putting yourself out there and taking that leap is big.
I was quite like I almost like say quite naive with it, to be honest. I thought it was going to be like, I just seen people that I knew doing it, or people I'd met from like partying Ibiza and stuff, like doing all this cool stuff and getting paid quite a lot of money just to post a photo of themselves in whatever fast fashion was relevant at the time. And I thought if I went on to like Love Island or what I ended up doing, like I could get that. And people used to ask me like, oh, when are you going to go on it? Because I was always that kind of person that you'd think would go on to something like that. Party boy, like I used to get attention. I had tattoos and like I was in shape still, even though I was like getting on it every weekend and stuff. I'd still go to the gym, because it's a lot easier just to go to the gym and just like get through the process of training than it is to like get up on a Sunday morning and run a half marathon if you hadn't slept. Do you know what I mean? So it's very different. So yeah, I don't know. I just kind of was like, I knew I was going to do something with my life as well. I always thought that. I always had this like vision of doing something. Just didn't know how to get there and what the end goal really was. I just thought it's almost like treasure at the end of the road, right? That I was just like, I want to be successful, and however that looks for me at a time. I thought it was money or sort of like status or something, which now is very different. But yeah, I just always wanted to get out of the situation. I used to read a lot and I'd always work on myself, but I knew where I wasn't the right place to be in. Like, it's always about environments, right? And when you're surrounded by people that are very happy doing the same thing for the rest of their lives and maybe not making as much money as they could, and having the freedom and like being able to like be their own boss in a sense, and like get up when they want to, train and look after themselves. There was just something missing and it wasn't right. And I was just very naive about reality TV to think it was going to be like the answer to all the questions that I had.
How much of your week to week, month to month habits at the weekend were a way of escaping the work you didn't enjoy doing? Did you feel you were longing for the weekend, for the social life, for the escape, or the fun of it? Because they're all three very different things, aren't they? Yeah,
like I guess I think a lot of people don't think they have a problem until they admit they have a problem, but there is probably a problem there. And I think it was only until afterwards that I realised that there was a problem. And I used to get like a little bit of social anxiety going out and stuff, but I don't get that anymore. And I don't know if that's come from like age and confidence, or if it's just removing the stuff that was causing the anxieties. And I think I was like going out and then drinking and doing drugs to then enjoy myself. But it was because I wasn't happy with life and what I was doing. And I thought that was like enjoyable. But then once you remove all them things, even like in the past few years when I've done things that most people would dream of doing, with like the parties and the places I've gone, once you remove them substances, you don't actually enjoy it. Like that, for me anyway, I didn't enjoy it. And I can easily go out now and I can have a good time on a night out, but I don't like long for it or like really look forward to it in a sense.
It's a big one, isn't it? Because I mean, London, there's a lot of people that might not be happy in their job. That means that Thursday, Friday, Saturday is beers, which can lead to other things. And it's just that day-to-day malaise that can come from it, which means that, I mean, my attitude to alcohol, I'm kind of, horrible phrase, but lobriety, we'll call it. Yeah. That's not true, actually. It's kind of like quarterly sobriety, full send, back to a quarter at a time. That's kind of how I approach things. I'm actually tracking it for the first time now, and trying to gamify it a little bit, because I know that's how my brain will work. Yeah. But when I was in London, I definitely wasn't completely content with my work, and therefore found myself just itching to up the intensity by going out with my friends quite regularly. And I know there's a lot of people in this city, other big cities in the world, that might not be content with their day-to-day, which means that the habits become the way of escaping it.
Yeah, even in the not big cities, like back home, Plymouth, like I feel like it's such a big thing for people just to spend the whole weekend doing, because there's nothing else to do as well.
Right? Well, how did you have faith that there was opportunity out there for you where other lads in Plymouth might not have done? Where did that come from?
I actually can't really tell you, but that is one of the reasons why I wanted to start speaking up about my experience with drugs and alcohol, especially drugs, because it's such a, even in sport, it's such a like frowned upon thing to kind of talk about in a way. I think it's getting a lot better. I was always scared like it might hinder my career in some sort of aspect, but I want to help people that are in that situation that think it's quite normal when it's not normal, and you don't have to do it just because they're surrounded by people doing it. And you might not, like you're saying, you might not be happy with your situation, but because everyone else is doing it and it's just like life, you don't see a way out. Whereas if you can see me coming from that, doing the stuff that I've done, realizing maybe this is not the right thing anyway, and then doing even better stuff, and like that's what I'm trying to get known for now, rather than the TV, is the endurance stuff that I'm doing and all these things. Like seeing someone do that gives you that sort of like, oh, maybe I can do it. Do you know what I mean? Anyone can do it. Like, you just have to kind of believe in yourself, start trying to, and then it's just like sweat the small things and just build it up and just keep going.
How important is it to you to be known for something? Because it's kind of I know you're into your Stoic reading.
Yeah.
How do you understand and reflect on the balance of career versus ego, doing things for the right reasons, and all this sort of stuff? Because you're in a very attention-driven world, aren't you?
Yeah. So it's funny this, because I've been doing some stuff with St. Mary's Uni recently, so like testing ahead of like what I'm doing later in the year, and they actually did a sports like psychology session with me, and I've never done anything like that before. It's like a proper like therapy basically, but in a different way, because not like kind of unpacking them sort of things, but just motivations for why you do things. And we kind of come to the conclusion that I do things for respect from other people. And like a lot of people will say like you shouldn't really hold on to like other people's opinions of why you do things, and it's like you versus you and all this stuff. But there's a lot of power to be had in using stuff as fuel, and it all serves it all feeds into something, like, and you can use it for a positive. So I do kind of compete with other people, and I put this pressure on myself because I want to do more, and I want to be known for the stuff that I do, but I want to be known and respected for the right reasons now. And I think like TV was almost like a way of getting my name out there and getting known for something. And then I realized actually like I don't really want to be known for that. I want to be known for something that's I'm proud of, and then doing all this stuff, that's what I've kind of found. Do you know what I mean?
So when you went into the reality TV process, you just wanted to increase your trajectory. You didn't have any strategic, I'm going to leverage this for this. You learned that along the way.
Yeah, it was like, I knew I was going to use it to get out of the situation I was in. I could move back to London because I moved here when I was 18 originally, did a couple of years at uni and then dropped out and then went home. And I just didn't want to stay where I was. I didn't appreciate like the seaside and Plymouth as much as I do now. Like I love going back now, but I just wanted to get out of that situation, remove myself. I wanted more. And I wanted like the money and the thought at the time, like the Instagram following, all that stuff like that is kind of all I was trying to like see what I could do and then push it further or whatever. But yeah, it wasn't until afterwards. Like I actually read, have you read The Alchemist?
Yeah.
So it's such a cool story because it's obviously interpreted differently for everyone, but the main thing is you think of this treasure that you want, and that's the end goal, the treasure. It's like the money or this or whatever you hold valuable. And then along the way, you start realizing it's actually about enjoying the journey and finding your like destiny and what you're meant for. And then like in turn, you probably will get the treasure anyway because you found what you're passionate about and you keep working towards this like end goal, which actually isn't a treasure all along anyway. That's kind of like my storyline as well. That's what I took from that book, because that's what I've kind of done. I've kind of gone, right, I want money in sort of this or that. And then I've got there and I've gone, right, actually, I'm really passionate about like training, but also inspiring other people to do more by me doing more myself. And then that's then just become my thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the biggest trap people can fall into is chasing the treasure at the end of the road rather than taking in the views as they're on the road.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I hold myself accountable to is process over outcome, because as human beings we evolve. It's one of the big things I took away from The Alchemist is kind of just reflecting on getting to from A to B. It's that process that's valuable. B is kind of just the cherry on top of the process.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you can channel. Maybe I do, maybe it's suppressed, I don't know, but I really try and hold myself accountable to the fact that if it doesn't get me out of bed in the morning excited with a fire in my belly to train for it, for me, I'm not interested at all.
Yeah.
And I know that the training process won't go well if that's not the sort of core of it.
Yeah.
So
I found that's why I kind of do these really long things now. And when I did London Marathon, then I did UTMB, which was just the marathon, the short distance. And I loved that compared to the marathon. And then I did another faster marathon, beat my time. And I was like, I could easily just keep chipping off 5 minutes every year. But what I gained from the harder, longer race that not many people were doing was way more valuable than just doing the same thing as everyone else and competing with myself for time or other people for times. And then I was like, maybe I should try do like an even longer one. So like 5 days, did the 220 in Africa. And that's where I gained the most, like sort of out of all of this stuff. And it's even the process, like I thought it was miserable. Like some of the training is miserable and I don't get excited to like, sometimes like I do love doing it, but sometimes I'm like, I can't be asked to run 40k. But like you're not meant to, do you know what I mean? Again, yeah, you're not meant to like love that. Like that's, do you know what I mean? Like that's just part of it, I think. And there's obviously good and bad things, and if it wasn't hard then everyone would do it and then it wouldn't be as like valuable as it is to you.
So could you distill down what it is that drives you forwards with your decision making day to day, because you've achieved a lot of things that you set out to achieve on premise with reality TV. You're now sort of in the position that you can steer your own ship. What are the metrics that you measure yourself on for success on a day-to-day basis?
That's quite hard, to be fair. I don't really know. I think because like I used to hold myself to monetary value, so how much money I'm making, that was like kind of like my success metric. And then to be fair, I went through a period of time where I took a step away from what I was doing to do what I wanted to do, and the people I was working with at the time kept saying, no, you need to do more of this and less fitness stuff, and I was like, no, this is like where I want to go with it. And obviously I took a bit of a pay cut in a sense, so then maybe I wasn't as successful. But that same year where I met my partner, I grew in loads of different ways, like mentally and within a relationship, and I started building this life. And you kind of realize success isn't always like measurable in a certain way and linearly either, but also just in one aspect. You can succeed in different parts, and that's what I've kind of come to realize. And now I I don't really know. I think I have like not an end goal, because obviously when you get to one mountain, there's just another mountain to climb. But I understand the whole thing, and I'm very grateful for where I am, which is a lot more important than just chasing this like hedonic treadmill, as they say. Yeah,
it's something I think about a lot as well. And occasionally a couple of weeks can pass where I'm like, oh, I'm slipping down this path a little bit too much. Bring yourself back out from that.
Yeah.
Check yourself. So it's always something that I think's important to reflect upon, especially when you're pushing bigger and bigger and further with events, commercial stuff, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you've taken away from ultra endurance? Because, I mean, the lessons that I've taken away from it have changed me as an individual. It's changed business systems. It's changed priorities. It's changed what I want from life. Because, and I think the most important thing is, it's given me the undistracted time away from a very busy and chaotic world to actually just think about those things.
Yeah.
And you've come from a very stimulated, fast-paced, high-intensity background. Probably the background those people
ADHD
were saying you need to...
and addictive personality, like
all these things, all these things. Compound them
Yeah.
all, and then you've got an agent or an agency, I'm assuming, saying, no, stop doing the fitness stuff. We need to be doing the fast fashion. We need to be doing the appearances. We need to be doing all this. And you're fighting against that with an addictive personality and ADHD.
Yeah.
Big battle going on there. I assume you really, really needed that undistracted peace and time to unpack things. So what are the big lessons you've taken away from ultras?
Well, so the 220, one of the biggest things I learned was like, it's so hard that little things day to day don't seem that hard anymore. And I have this conversation with my girlfriend sometimes, like maybe it's because we're different people in a sense, but like little things like get to her sometimes. And I'm very like chilled out in myself, and issues aren't that big like most of the time. So I think I can navigate life just a little bit better with it. But the whole experience, like you said, with just timing your thoughts, like I did 30 odd hours with no music the whole time, just no headphones, just ran through Africa. Like it was like amazing, like miserable and amazing, but also the whole experience where you remove yourself from social media and internet in a campsite, like with a load of other people doing exactly the same thing. It was just like a life-changing experience, which I kind of said straight after I wouldn't do it again. And then within like a couple of weeks, I made plans to do something even bigger and way worse. But
I've been there,
yeah, literally. But yeah, that was one of the biggest things, was just to remember to switch off and remove myself from, we say the real world, but that's actually the real world. That's like how we're meant to be. We're meant to be like that. We're meant to be like running all day and like hunting for food, and like we're not meant to be doing what we're kind of doing now. And I feel like that's really important. So like now I know for a fact, like every year, regardless of races and stuff, I'm gonna go camping and like remove myself from my phone and internet and work, because I never do that. Even on holidays, I end up working more on holidays because it looks better for content than I do when I'm at home. Do you know what I mean? So I've never really had a break. 5 years of whatever, and obviously in the beginning when I was going on holiday and partying, it was a little bit of a break and it was a bit of a release, but now I don't really have that kind of release or something. So it's like these long distance running events, other than like filming the content a little bit, which to be honest is like just part of my life now anyway. It's not like work, it's like removing myself from everything, and I think it's really important to be able to do that.
Given that a lot of your, because correct me if I'm wrong, but your missus in the same world as well, Emily.
Yeah.
It's essentially a lot of your existence is documented, and it's quite a lot of the day-to-day stuff is a core part of what you're actually putting out on the internet, and that's tied into commerciality, that's tied into how you pay rent, it's tied into all these things. Yeah. Do you have the ability to be able to create boundaries between what is life and what is to be documented online? Because if you're documenting your downtime, you're documenting your working periods, you're documenting your holidays, you're documenting intimate moments over dinner in Mykonos, whatever it might be, when are you actually being yourself and not being the person that's on the internet? Yeah,
so I feel like I do document quite a lot of stuff, but I'm also quite private with things. I think there's a lot of power in not kind of showing a certain aspect of you online. And there's certain things I don't talk about. I don't really talk about my problems. I don't really talk about, other than like past things that I know are going to help people. I don't really share a lot of that stuff. So that's kind of like, for me, I don't really share stuff like that with friends and people around me anyway, regardless of whether it was online or not. But I know what you mean. And there is times when we'll go out for like dinner and stuff on holiday, and it'll be like a really nice environment, nice setting, lovely sunset, and like you want to enjoy the moment. And Emily wants to take pictures, and I'm a little bit easier than her to do them. Obviously, as a girl, it takes a lot longer. So there is times when I've had conversations like, come on, like this is like, let's just actually just take this in and like breathe and do it. And I think it's just finding a bit of a balance. It's took a while. And it is difficult, but then also I've got to think like the only reason I'm going to these nice places and on these nice holidays, and half the time we don't end up paying for the hotel because we do it as a work thing, and like some of the trips are part work, part whatever. Like you got to understand that's why I'm there and that's how I've got there. So I still have to feed that. Do you know what I mean? That side of it. So yeah, I just think like showing a bit of gratitude is really important. It helps you stay with where your feet are.
Do you feel there's a bit of a battle you're going through in terms of proving that you are the person you've become, rather than the label that, I mean, maybe even the opening question I gave you, was reality TV worth it? There might be that. Yeah. It's if you've gone on one of these shows that's blown up, people view you as that person that was on that show potentially. Yeah. Do you fight with sort of trying to break free from that a little bit?
I think, like you said earlier, actually, like this kind of makes sense. You said about conflicting with like doing the work that I didn't want to do and stuff, and like going the way I wanted to go. I feel like I was very conflicted in my head because I was trying to be this person in a way, but I never like fully went in on it. And I was quite lucky in a sense that Love Island, you're like really, really hot news. Like your press is like everywhere, like you get pictured everywhere, you get all this stuff. Where I did Netflix and it was global, even on my following went massive. Like that press aspect of it, they didn't really care in the UK too much about it. I think in America they kind of took it a bit more seriously. So I didn't really have that like all out reality TV life where I was like mainstream media, like people were like, obviously I had people stopping for photos, but like it happened to me like abroad more than it did in like England. Do you know what I mean? It was like really weird. Like I'd go on holiday and people were like, oh my God, I've seen you on this, because like they don't really have their own versions of the shows, like in Greece and other places. So I think like I never really like did it like to the extent some people have to. And then also just playing up with it and doing the TikToks, like the dancing TikToks and the lip syncs and doing all the stuff that would have gained me way more following at the time, like some other people that did my show did, and like dating the right people and all of that stuff. I never really like did it, even when I was fully in on it, because I always had a bit of integrity in myself. Like I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do it, regardless of whether it made me more money or not. And I always turned down like sometimes big money jobs for things that I didn't want to do, because I knew I had money coming in. So I wasn't really like, do you know what I mean? I was like, right, I know I can sort of like miss out on a bit here, but I'm not going to do something I don't want to do. And like, there's loads of different aspects of that. But I think I was a bit conflicted, but I'm not now. So
that's good. Yeah. That's good. Cause I think it's, I think even Chris Williamson's spoken about how he's probably past it now, but there was a period he was being labelled as, oh, that Love Island guy.
Yeah.
Like, well, no,
I listened to something about that though as well, and it's like he was like also a nightclub promoter at the same time, but also like doing podcasts with like psychologists at uni, and then promoting like 2-for-1 drinks at like, do you know what I mean? It's like you're going to be conflicted in that
People
sense.
are multifaceted, I think is the important thing. But I think reality TV can often, from my perspective anyway, can often force people to think really binarily about who a person is and forget there's actually a human being in the middle of it.
Yeah, when I did Too Hot to Handle, it was very much like that. And I was young when I filmed it. I was 22 when I filmed it. I think it come out 5 years ago. I was 23 when it come out.
Right.
And it was on Netflix. Everyone was in lockdown watching it. They only show a certain amount of time. Like I was there filming for weeks. I did 2 episodes. I was there for nearly like 10 days filming. I was there for like 3 weeks, but I was there for 10 days filming with everyone. 2 episodes. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a lot of time not being shown. So they can kind of make you look how they want to. But at the same time, where I was young and I was also a bit naive, in an interview, if they say, what do you think about this? And I say something and they go, say it like this because it will sound better on TV. I'm going to go, oh, all right, I'll say it like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they're not looking at what's best for you. They're looking at what's best for the show. So I was very much like that. And then I got perceived in a very different way to how I am. Regardless of age and that point of life I was in, I was still very different to how I am. And it is very much like that. But there's only
what did they present you as? How do you feel you were perceived with those episodes?
Well, I went in late and the whole story was me to kind of disrupt. So you're obviously going to be the bad guy anyway in that situation. But I was just like a bit of an idiot, do you know what I mean? And I said some silly things and whatever. But it was me saying them and they only showed certain aspects, but they didn't show the good side. Do you know what I mean? So we all say silly things, but if you only hear the silly things from the person, it makes you look a certain way. And obviously, at the time, I was a bit of a party boy and whatever. Anyway, and the show itself, we didn't actually know why we were going on there. It was a completely new story. Like it was just like a reality show, like Love Island, going on Netflix. That was all we knew. So you can't really say I was there for the wrong reasons or whatever. But yeah, you can get perceived in a certain way. And there was a time when I took it to heart. Like looking at stuff online, I used to read my name on Twitter and read it all. But you get used to that. And I think I was always quite like tough-skinned. So it didn't get to me in a sense. But
you've got something big coming up, which is something that in two angles I'm interested in.
Yeah. It's really funny because I actually wanted to speak to you about it anyway for advice in a sense.
So all of these... I guess I'm just fascinated with. I mean, I know Adam Collard really well, and he's gone through a similar evolution where you're labelled one thing, you're perceived as one thing. You're not ultimately in control of how that's perceived. You then need to enter the real world and manage your own narrative and fight against this sort of new perception of who you are. When nobody really knows.
He's
who
done
you
well
are.
to also just keep going back into it.
He has done. He has done. I think he knows exactly what to expect now. So I'm always interested because there is the things that especially the thing you're about to take on is a long way from, I guess, what the standard interests of the audience would be with what makes up the vast majority of your visibility online. Yeah. So talk me through what you've got coming up, what you want to achieve, and what it means to you.
Yeah. To be fair though, before I actually say it, the conflict of interest with the audience, like I actually, when I come off the first show, I went up to like 700-800k. It went down to nearly 500k, and I've managed to nearly double it in the last 4 or 5 years. And most of my recent like new audiences and stuff, other than from certain trending videos, are actually like male, probably a little bit older than the female audience I had. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I have like quite a good engaging audience now with what I'm doing, which is nice. But so the basics is I did 220 in March. And while that was multi-day, I think day 3 was my longest run ever, and day 4 was longer again, and then day 5 was a faster version of day 3. So every day was like PBs, which was crazy. And I kind of said I wouldn't do the distance again for like the first week or two when I couldn't walk. But then after that, I was on a flight home, and I was looking at like the flight map, and I was like, I want to do the same thing. I want to do something really big, but in a selfish way, I didn't want to do like a race again, because it was really nice, the whole situation in the camping and everything. It was an amazing scenario, but I thought maybe I can orchestrate my own scenario with the people around me that I want to be there and stuff, and have like an even better experience in like whatever. So I come up with this idea. I was just trying to think of like what would be meaningful to me, and because of the sobriety, and I used to go IB for every single year. It was my first really big holiday, and I used to go, not sleep, like have a mental time, and feel horrendous, like usually like midway through it, and not enjoy most of it actually. But yeah, so I was like, what could I do that could have a lot of meaning? Because everyone's gone bigger, and there's always someone faster or longer, and there's like Russ. Every time when I talked about Africa, everyone was like, oh, have you seen that guy running the whole length? I'm like, yeah, I'm just ran 220k, like take mine in a minute. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm telling someone about something and like, oh, have you seen this guy doing like 25,000 times longer? So I was like, what can I do that's got a lot of meaning? And come up with the idea on a flight to run the circumference of Ibiza. didn't know how far it was or what, and I was like, oh, maybe I can work it out, but obviously I had no internet. So I knew the Isle of Wight is 100k because someone I knew was doing that. So I zoomed in on the Isle of Wight and I've got it on the screen, so it's like 100k is that. So I'm like, right, let me find Ibiza. So I've scrolled the screen the same size to get Ibiza, and I was like, it's not too much bigger. I could probably do that in one go. And that was where the ideas come. So yeah, I'm running 250k ish, depending on the route, all in one go, hopefully in 48 hours, like self-supported, just going out there with a team. Yeah.
It's watch out for speed bumps is all I'm going to say.
Switch my angle.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed running across it, not around it, when I was there recently. But yeah, for anyone.
Yeah, I did look, not to say like, because you just did that on a whim, like you just went and did it. But I was like, what can I do? I was like looking at the distance across. I was like, that's definitely not far enough upwards. And then sideways, I was like, it's probably still not enough. I was just comparing things. And when I got back, and I was like, I actually thought it was 200k when I worked it out originally.
Yep.
And I thought 200k is like a little bit shorter than I went last time, but all in one go is going to be a lot different through the night and stuff. I thought, fuck it, I can do it.
It's a good temperature overnight as well. It's hot during the day. I wasn't too windy the day that I ran across it. It was 52k for me. It was 5.5 hours. But the heat was tough. I had to really keep on top of everything.
Yeah.
The first time I've done a running, I've done obviously lots of long distance cycling and running sort of Ironman setting in hot countries, but running with a trail bag with no support car.
Yeah.
Really had to keep on top of it.
Because you've got to think about like running out of water and stuff like that. But where I did Africa, I've got the heat element because it was like coming into, I don't know how the seasons work there, but it was like nearly 30 degrees every day. It was hot. Yeah. And I was running for like 9-10 hours a day most of the day. So I know I can do that. And I actually done a lot of heat training for that. And I actually work quite well in the heat. So like, like a Hackney half. Yeah. So I was like, I did the Hackney half this year, and I knew in my head, I was like, it normally gets hot. And then when it got hot, I was like, it's like sick, because I know that I'm going to still get my time. And everyone else is going to struggle. It's going to push me a little bit further away from everyone. But yeah, that's kind of why I ain't really got interested doing something cold. So I was like, cool, I'll do it in the summer.
So September.
Yeah, because that's actually 2 years since the last time I went. Actually my anniversary at the end of it as well, which is nice and whatever. But like 2 years since I went and did any drugs, 2 years sober. I've been sober from alcohol because I was not trying to go sober at the time, but I've been sober from alcohol nearly 500 days now. Okay. Like fully.
Excellent.
Which is cool.
Excellent. So you're going to hurt yourself in other ways.
It's almost like it's just like a nail in the coffin from the old me. Do you know what I mean?
I like the way you've tied it all together from a personal point of view. It's a real neat way of doing it. Because again, I found the irony of my most recent YouTube video. It was running across Ibiza, and there was an alcohol-free beer integration in there. And I was this is a great place to put it, just because of the irony of what the islanders generally associated with. We have an alcohol-free sponsor already. There we go. Lined up for it. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Alcohol and, well, they actually do both. So they're going to bring both, and people that are doing it with me that aren't sober can have a drink, and I cannot. And when we celebrate, I'll probably maybe do like a little zero alcohol beer mile or something, and it'd be cool.
What's how weird did you get in your own head in Africa over the 220? Because you did have sleep stops and everything, which helps.
I actually, you had a conversation, I can't remember, I was looking at podcasts and stuff. You had a conversation with someone about this, about whether it's like not harder to do 250 all in one go, or the 250 side, like your, is it Johnny does? Yeah, he does like the multi-day ones. Yes, and you don't really sleep in that, do you? Like the sleep. No,
I think it was with Johnny talking about the Arctic, because essentially, I think he was so nervous the night before that he got about half an hour of sleep, which meant he went into it destroyed.
It was really funny. My root recovery was like 30%, 2%, 1%, 1%. And then on the last day, I was in so much pain, I wasn't sleeping. So I took a codeine to go to bed. And I woke up in the green. 5 days into an ultra, I was like, this is mental. Like, I've actually slept. And we had, to be fair, the day before we started really early. So we had a lay-in. We started at like 4 a.m. on the last day, which was a lay-in. Day before was 2. Which was where I'll get onto with the mental stuff. That was the hardest day. But yeah, the sleep was like a big factor. Because you're in a tent as well in Africa. It's like, it's not comfortable sharing it with a random bloke.
Can't imagine it's particularly sort of
like race
optimal
bag,
temperature.
Race bag under your feet, like your smelly shoes next to you, like all your gears in there. It was intense. But Yeah, on the fourth day so we did like 30, 40, 50, 60k day on the fourth day, and that was my birthday, which is kind of the reason I planned to do the race in the first place. I was like, cool, this is going to be a sick birthday, like go out there for a week in Africa, like never experience that again in my life, do you know what I mean? So started at 2 a.m, sleep was like non-existent, was in really bad pain. I got injured like 2 days in, on my knee was just like blowing up, and I'd never had knee issues before. It was really weird. Obviously my body just screaming to like chill out, stop, or whatever. So I was climbing this hill, and the worst bit was the downhills. So the 60k day was 10k up, like up, down, but up in the dark. And then it was like 10k straight down, like really intense. And then it was 42k just flat. And I was like, something like that. And I was like, I know I can get to the flat and shuffle, it would be fine. But I was going to struggle on the downs. So I was building it up in my head as this like really hard thing. And I started off slower than I did any other day. The first day I'd come like 10th, and then obviously I used competing with other people as a metric to help me, motivate me and stuff. And the second and third day where I got injured, I was like 30th, then 20th-ish. And I was like, right, like I'm quite slow starting today. And people were overtaking me that hadn't been seen most of the race. So I was like, oh, fuck, like getting in my head about it. Was getting up this hill, was almost like making excuses in my head about why it would be okay to quit because I've injured myself, and I can just be like, well, it wasn't my time, I didn't do this in training, this is like all this stuff. And then there was a way you could pull out of a day and then finish the race still, but obviously if I pulled out on the last day I wouldn't have finished. So I was in my head going, well, if I pull out today I save 50k, I can still go back tomorrow and do it non-competitively and I still finish technically. So I was making this excuse up in my head, got to the top of this hill crying at this point, sat down at the aid station, and people going past me, and I was just like, felt miserable, just hated myself for like giving up basically, even though I hadn't actually given up. I like in my head I'd given up, checked out, and I was like, do you know what, no, I'm gonna go. So I just got up, took a paracetamol, got up and just started going, and I used everyone as like checkpoints to catch up. So after I got down the downhill, it was really hard, like killed me. Once I got flat again, I was like, right, I can just pick everyone off now one by one, and that will keep me going. And that's how I got through it. And that day was like the biggest achievement I've done. Even finishing the race wasn't as big as finishing that day because it was such a battle.
Yeah. Properly scrapped yourself.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the biggest fought kind of thing I had.
Well, there's a few things there. Number one, running around Ibiza, you're not going to have anyone to compare yourself to on a leaderboard, which is very, very different.
Yeah.
And number two is that, given my recent experience of running 250k in one go, the battle that you have where you're at the top of a hill crying your eyes out thinking, fuck this, I'm done, and then punishing yourself because you feel like a little wet wipe because you've decided to throw the towel in, then you're like, you know what, I'm going to crack on. Yeah. That'll happen a fair few times.
Yeah, I bet it will.
So it's that's kind of the fun of it, really. I mean, Jamie, who was sitting over there, ran 100k of support with me and witnessed my worst moments. The worst moments were just over 100 miles and just over 200k for me. Those were like proper
do you
meltdowns.
Think that was because it was a mental milestone, and you was kind of thinking, if I can get to 100 miles, then that's a big achievement, and then I can do this next. Do you know what I mean? And
it was actually, but both times were terrain related.
Okay.
And so the first breakdown, I actually felt really good, like up until I felt as good as I could expect at, I think, whatever it was, about 80 miles or so, knowing that I was getting towards the 100.
Yeah.
But the section just before the 100, Inversnaid, along the West Highland Way, Inversnaid to the top of Loch Lomond, fuck me, you can barely move more than 2 kilometres an hour there. It's you can't run. If you run, it's about 20 yards, and then you're hand on knee, step up, slippy rock. It's just like you just can't run it. You can't even walk it quickly,
especially not in the summer.
And not, I did it in the winter, to be fair, but it's especially when I'm 80 miles deep already.
I mean,
yeah. So it was that, and then I just felt so destroyed. And it was the mental battle that I was kind of working as hard as I could to keep moving forwards and just going nowhere.
Yeah,
I think that's what really got to me. So it was a big mental punch in the face, which then just made me much more aware of the physical stuff, which made me just start to think about, you've got so far to go. You've got another, basically, what was it, 90k at this point, more or less, 85, 90k to go. This is impossible. There's no way you're going to be able to get this done. This is ridiculous. And then the mind starts to unravel. Managed to make it through. got to sit down on a park bench to get some food on board, have a chat with Johnny, and just sort of think, right, okay, let's crack on. Next couple of sections were really, really positive, and the physical pain I was less aware of. It was having less of a catastrophizing effect on me.
It's mad how you go through them phases. And mine was the same. Like the day I got injured, the second day was so slow after, and it started really early, and then I was wrapping my knee up every aid station, wasn't helping. And then the last 3 miles, I was like sprinting again. It was so weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I started the next day okay, and then I fell apart. And then the next day I started in an awful position. I mean, it's...
Yeah. It was 208K, I think. 200 to 208K was awful because there was a section that I'd ran in the past in the snow, so it was quite soft underfoot, and it was a beautiful, beautiful part of the world, one of the best parts of the whole route. But I was doing it in the dark. I was already 200K deep.
Yeah.
It's a pretty bad situation to be in, whatever the terrain. But there was no snow, so underfoot was it was just horrible underfoot. Like I felt it was like lots of little like pebble dash almost. It was just I felt like I was getting spiked on my feet for ages. Weren't moving quickly. You can't determine inclines in the dark. You just see path, so you don't really know how to attack anything. Tiredness was really setting in, and all these things just compounded. And I just mentally I just had an absolute wobble at that point. Again, brought it in. Got myself back together and got moving again. I was destroyed at this point, but again, mentally, I was unraveling, which made me much more aware of the physical rather than I'd hit a point where my body was like, no, you actually can't continue. It was all in my head, which meant that going through that process, it wasn't all in my head. There was blood in my shoes.
Yeah.
But it was... it just goes to show how much going through the reps of doing those things is valuable because you come out the other side like you did at the top of that hill on your birthday. Is that's where the value is in doing the training to get to the event and then actually experiencing the thing itself, because there's not many people doing a 5-day multi-ultra 220K that breeze the whole thing, and if there are, then they're probably racing snakes. So it's a very fascinating experience.
Definitely not doing a 50K week leading up to it and then just... Yeah.
So I think the things that will be most exciting will be when hallucinations start. I say exciting in a sort of morbid way.
The sleep deprivation stuff. I am going to do a little bit leading up to it.
Yeah.
But that's where I know I'm shit when I don't sleep properly. And I did a little bit of Mykonos actually. I purposely didn't sleep enough, and I got up at like 4 a.m. to get going really early and did like a half marathon in the heat. And I learned a little bit about like shade and like maybe planning the route to kind of avoid, to make it a bit easier initially, because obviously day 2 then you end up on the other side anyway. But like, do you know what I mean? Like coming up on the right side of the sun or the wrong side, so I'm in the shade maybe.
Yeah, it's a good start point.
Yeah, so, it gives you a couple extra hours of like non-heat exhaustion and whatnot.
That's a big part actually, because if you can do the most exposed bits in the dark, then you'll get battered by the sun less. Yeah,
so I just thought like, did you learn in it? So like when you do these training runs, it's not just about conditioning yourself to like run 40K. It's like you learn all these little things, like simulating the race or the run itself. You learn little things that actually might be really beneficial, because you should sweat all the small stuff. I think is so important.
What do you think people that spend a lot of time on social media should aspire to? Because obviously your answer should be they should keep spending a lot of time on it, because it's where your visibility goes a long way.
On my channel.
On yours. But in terms of the glorification of, I mean, I think in schools now the number one job that people are looking for in kids is being an influencer or a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy to think. But again, we can both understand what the downstream benefits of that can be. But the glorification of attention, being in the public eye, what is your overarching take on it? Because obviously you've always had faith in yourself. You've said you're thick-skinned. You've come out the back end of it without having that sort of PR wave that comes with it. You've turned it into something. You've learned a lot of lessons along the way. I'd say you've done it right. There's a lot of people that have done it wrong, but overall net positive or net negative in terms of the effect that the glorification of social media and the glorification of the sort of reality TV trajectory boost. What are your thoughts?
I think it's definitely like a learn on the job kind of job. Do you know what I mean? Learn on the go like thing. And you have to like make mistakes to kind of work it out, and that's fine. Like it's not really like a failure if you learn something from it, and as long as you don't actually give up on what you want to do at the end. That's the most important part, right? It's, I don't know. I think a lot of people try to feed like a commercial narrative a bit too much. So they do things that they don't specifically want to do. And they're like, it's almost like when you create content, it's a little bit like, I wouldn't call it creating art personally anyway, but it's like, it's a way of like creating something, right? It's art in a sense. And if you're just doing it to make money and to feed to make more money and commercialize it, you sort of lose that like love of it, and you lose the direction a little bit. And I think that's quite important. So like, I don't know, like you see trends and things pop up and people jump on certain things, and then it becomes almost like their identity. And it's like, I take myself very seriously, and I've always kind of done that because I want other people to take me seriously as well. So I've never really like played into the narrative of not being too serious, because that's how I am. And a lot of people they'll jump on like trying to be a certain way and dancing in between their sets in the gym and all that stuff, and like I just don't buy into that. So that's my only advice, is to be yourself, and let it show through, because at the end of the day, that authenticness is what's gonna actually get you further. But yeah, I don't know. Is that a good enough answer for that question?
No, it's just something to think on, I guess.
Yeah.
And if
that's like my advice to start anyway, I think.
If Instagram disappeared tomorrow, social media in general disappeared tomorrow, do you think you could still be happy day to day?
I think I'd work it out.
Okay.
Yeah. And I feel like it's hard, because I know social media isn't going anywhere, and maybe the channel that you're on might change and new things come about. Like I've just downloaded Snapchat again, which is crazy, but like, because it's going off on Snapchat apparently. But I want to, it's just it's hard to like navigate it anyway. But the point is, there's always going to be another thing. So at the end of the day, I don't really want to be like I don't know, like would you call it an influencer? I don't want to be an influencer at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? So if you take away Instagram, it's not going to not make me happy, because that's not really what I want to do. But it's so important for everyone at the moment, businesses, everything, social media, that it would be very hard to do a job that revolves around it if there wasn't any. But I know there's something else I could do, and I'd work it out. I know I have that confidence in myself.
I guess the core of the question is, how much self-worth do you place on social media metrics?
See now, not too much, but I know how important that is for me, for my career, and there is a lot of pressure to do more and to do better, because end of the day, if you're not reaching people and people aren't engaging with your stuff anymore, and it is going like downhill, which I think it has anyway for a lot of people in a sense, and things come about very fast, but they go very fast now. I find like it is important, but I don't hold any self-worth to it anymore. But at the same time, like all these things that I'm doing, they are in a sense trying to elevate me in a certain aspect. So maybe I do a little bit, but I think it's such an important part of life now that you kind of have to a little bit.
Yeah, I think being in the middle is kind of don't plug your self-worth into it directly, but also don't forget that they're there if it's a core part of how you make a living, because it's trackable, it's measurable, which means that if it is how you make a living, or it is your small business marketing, then you need to pay attention to it.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
How the modern world works.
Like in any business, you look at the numbers, right, and trajectories, and like it's important for scaling and whatever. So it does. It's got it holds a lot of importance, but I don't hold my self-worth towards it, if that makes sense.
Reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
And nobody else should either.
Yeah.
Kori, really enjoyed that. Thank you very much. All the best with all your training that's coming up. I'm sure you're probably getting about 2 weeks out from really, really hitting peak before you start to scale things back a little bit.
I think, I've got like a trip at the end of August where I'm going to get a lot of the training in similar environments and stuff. Yeah. So that's where it's building up for that.
Then big send, end of September?
Yeah, it's about mid-September. So by the time this comes out, we'd have announced it. And then this will come out, and then it'll be like the last few weeks before, just like organising it. To be honest, it's the actual organisation behind it is so hard, isn't it? Like,
but that's the art.
When
that's
you're
why
the
I'm
athlete
fully
and
with
the
you on
marketing and
logistically pulling together something big.
Yeah.
I get a lot more from personally and for the team when it's not just hitting sign up and register for a race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I'm going to get a lot more out of this, regardless of the difficulty of it or the meaning behind it. I think just doing it is going to be a massive milestone in my life. So yeah, that's
enjoy.
what it's for.
That's what it's all about.
Cheers, yeah.
All the best. Thank you, my
Nice
man.
one, mate. Thank you.